begin. Okay, so tonight we're talking about the astral. Now, obviously when we're talking about the astral world or the astral plane, if we were to get our little Kabbalistic drawing again, like that. So these are the 7 planes of existence, or 7 worlds in which we live, move, and have our being. Like that. Power of 3, and then the 7 worlds. The astral is here. So this is the physical world, the vital or etheric world, and then this is the astral. Above it is the mental world, world of mind, and the world of cause, world of consciousness, world of spirit. So the astral is something that obviously everyone's very interested in, because it's something that we've been experiencing our whole life. Because when we're talking about the astral, we're talking about the world of dreams. Now, yeah. So every night that we lie down in our bed, what happens to us is that our astral body, because we have, here I've only drawn 3 bodies. I've drawn the physical body, the vital body, which exists about an inch or 2 outside from the physical body, and then the astral, which is coming up here. These are the 3. But really, as I said, we have a body in each of these worlds, or we have something. If we may not have created a legitimate astral body yet, or a legitimate mental body, but we still have the effigy of mind. We still have the body of desire, if not, yeah, which is like an astral phantom, which we go out in every night. And then there's, of course, the causal consciousness, and then the being, our own interior real being, the spirit. And so really we are a 7-dimension or a septuple being, a septuple. Kids know that word, septuple? Septuple means a 7. You got double, you got triple, you got quadruple, you got quintuple, and then you've got sextuple, which is 6, and then what did I say it was again? Septuple, which is 7. I'm assuming it's from the Greek. I always forget where that all comes from. Anyway, so we are a 7-fold person. Yep, there's the physical Dante, the vital, the astral Dante, the mental Dante, the causal Dante, the conscious Dante, and then, or the Buddhi, that's the term, and then the Atmic Dante, or the being, your real being, the real thing, your own interior God. So we all have that. We're a 7-fold nature. But tonight we're going to talk on the 3rd of that nature, the astral. So the astral world exists just like this. If we have the physical world, the vital world, and the astral world. And the astral world is just, in a way, is a reflection of the physical world. It has all the same things. Cars, houses, you know what I mean? Things, or as my Brazilian friend says, stuffs. Lots of stuffs, big stuffs, little stuffs, yeah? All the stuffs, all the things, yeah? They're everywhere, yeah? It's exactly like this. There is a chair in the physical world. There is a vital aspect of the chair. There is an astral chair. It's exactly the same. And as we mentioned during a 7 Rounds, 7 Races lecture, during this time, we were, when life was living just in the astral world, everything was as it was now. And when you live in the astral, it's like it is now. It's just perhaps a bit more strange. Like when you're in your dreams, everything is just like it is physically. Do you know what I mean? There's houses, cars, things, friends, stuffs. Yeah, everything's exactly as it is. Yeah. So the astral world is just like the physical world. Yeah, we're not talking about some fantastical reality where everything's in constant movement of fractals, etc., etc. Like the causal world's a little more like that. Okay? So that's the astral world. And so every night when we go to sleep, we lie down in our bed, yeah, when we are horizontal like this, the physical and vital body need to work, meaning that the vital body, which we talked about that quite a long time ago at the beginning of our course, the vital body repairs the physical body with the vital base and vital energy that exists within the vital body. Yeah, because all the energy of your whole life, all the energy that the physical body and of your whole physical life, of all the energy of your 5 centers of the human machine, all of the bob and candle nost, which means the energetic values that you're born with, exists within the vital body. And the vital body each day, better said each night, restocks or re-energizes is probably the right word, re-energizes the physical body and puts energy. That's why if we don't sleep, the physical body is not re-energized by the vital body, and then we slowly deteriorate. Yeah, it's not just a case of the fact that we're not getting enough physical sleep. It's not just about that. It's that the actual, or sorry, as in we're tired. The reason why we're run down is because the vital body repairs the physical body. It's what it does. Yeah. So when we go to sleep, the vital body goes, and so we depart with all of our other bodies as well. They're beyond. Yeah. We depart in our astral body, in our eidolon. And so we depart in this astral body, astral double, eidolon. There's lots of names for it. And we project into the astral world like that. Yeah. And this is what we would refer to as a dream, going into the world of dreams, which is quite interesting because, like, when you think about, for instance, the Aboriginal people in Australia, they talk about the dream time, which is such an interesting concept because the dream time can be something that happened with our ancestors a long time ago, but it also can be something that's happening now. It's such a strange sort of concept when they talk about it. You know, usually they're referring to ancestral, but I've often heard them talking about the dream time sort of being right now. It's kind of like with the Norse people, how they talk about Ragnarok, but then Ragnarok never really technically comes. Do you know what I mean? The end and the Fimbulvinter and all this sort of stuff. It's sort of constantly in a state of being just on the edge of finishing. It's very interesting. Anyway, so we can enter into this state, into the astral world. But we do it every night, irregardless. That's it. So I'm going to talk to you about astral projection soon, but every night we go into the astral. We just do, because the physical body has to be repaired by the vital body. So every night you go to the astral. Every single night. Whether you remember it or not, it doesn't matter, right? Okay, so let's talk a bit about these dreams. Yeah? A bit about these what we use the term in Gnosis astral experiences when we're talking about like a symbolic dream. But there are 4 types of dreams. Or 4 types. Like the first I'm going to talk about tonight, they're in no particular order, is a past life experience. Through the use of the Akashic record, a person can remember their past lives. Has anyone here had a past life experience before? Yeah, it's fantastic. You know, it's completely different. I had it only 2. Neither of them were overly fun. It was the end of the Second World War. I was not on the winning side, and I was running away from Germany because it was all over. You know? And on those, I had one where I remembered killing a man after shooting him in the lungs when I was running away because he was following me, and I was born an asthmatic in this lifetime, which is very interesting. And another one, again, with the same situation where my best friend in this life, a person I spent a lot of time with who's living in Canada, Josh. Hello, Josh, if you're watching. Yeah, these are for him. We were running away, and I remember we stopped in an old wood what's it called? Woodworking shop, like carpentry shop, but like a big one, kind of like the ones from school, and with all of the tools and everything. And we were being shot at with guns, and I saw the glass falling down. I was sort of sheltering him, and the glass was coming down. But I saw the big red flags with the swastikas on them, you know. So we were still in Germany. We were trying to get out, you know, because it was going crazy. Anyway, that was during that time. An esoteric society, but that's not really what we're going to talk about tonight. So, so we can have a past life record, past life experience. And so I'm talking specifically about a past life dream, you know, and it has a different flavor, you know. It's usually not so much symbolic as just literally living the way you are right now. Literally going, you know, like for instance, in one of my past life experiences, I actually have had a couple other ones too, but in a past life experience, actually, you know, there's knowledge that you have in those experiences that you couldn't have now. Talking another language is completely normal, you know, like in Bedazzled. You guys seen the movie Bedazzled? With
Liz Hurley and Fraser.
Brendan Fraser. Remember, he asked to be rich. He asked to be rich and powerful. It's the movie about the guy. He meets the devil, and the devil is played by this sort of beautiful woman in a red dress. It's a remake of the old one, and then he asks for. She says she'll give him 7 wishes, but then he's got to give her the soul. And the first wish, she says, I wish to be rich and powerful. But because she's the devil, she tries to ruin every wish. And so the first one, she says, I wish I'm rich and powerful. So she makes him a Spanish guy. He's rich, but then it turns out he's a drug lord. And then he's just about to get raided by a rival drug cartel. And so he like arrives and like the whole thing's getting blown up. And I think he ends by falling out of a helicopter and quickly changes to the next wish, trying to do. And every time the same thing, like he wishes to be, because I can't talk about some of them because they're sort of negative sexual jokes, but he wishes all these things and she always ruins the wish. It's a great film. I highly recommend it. Even from an esoteric standpoint, it's fantastic, You make a deal with the devil and it never quite goes right. Do you know what I mean? It's like, there's all these people who make a deal with the devil and they die when they're 28. You know that one? It's really famous, All the musicians and stuff who are said to be so good they must have made a deal with the devil and they all die at the same age. This, interesting, huh? So yeah, you have a past life experience, I have friends, I have friends who've had past life experience of being, famous people and just completely boring people too. Just like a simple guy in the war on the wrong side, or a friend of ours. He's in this life. It's the opposite. Everyone says, "Oh, you only dream being rich and powerful." This guy in this life he's probably the most important Gnostic person in the whole of our whole institution here in Australia. And I remember he remembers being a prostitute in London. And he said not only that, he said he wasn't a very attractive prostitute either. So he said it was really hard for him, for her in that life. He said he still has sometimes when he hears a creak on the stairs, he has the same like fear, of remembering that life, of like the pain of the person coming up the stairs. Oh, I don't want to, So, your past lives are very interesting. So if we want to, as I said, we can sometimes just have these experiences. Now, if we want to actually bring this on, we can do a practice with what's called the Maiden of the Memories. The Maiden of the Memories is a part of your being. Yeah, each person has with us many little parts of their being. Like, for instance, the Kaum, which is the conscience that works inside of us when we die. For instance, the masters of the law can ask the Kaum for the truth. And like, for instance, as an example, Samael talks about that when the Titanic sank, they were trying to find out. The masters of the law were asking who did it, like whose fault was it? Why did it sink? Why it shouldn't have sunk? It's a big, really powerful ship. It shouldn't have sunk. And they kept asking people, and then they asked the captain. They said, "What happened?" The captain, who had just died, obviously, he was in the afterlife, just couldn't say anything. And then they put their hand on him like that and pulled out from him the Kaum. And the Kaum said, "It was me." He said, "I wanted to prove that it wasn't just the biggest ship, that it was the fastest ship. So I took a shortcut through slightly dangerous waters and I hit an iceberg." You know what I mean? It wasn't my intention, but that's what I did. And so, therefore, the whole blame rests on one man, really. You know what I mean? All those lives, that's a lot of karma for him. So, but we also have a part of us called the Maiden of the Memories, which is a part related to the chakra in the lungs, which is the chakra that relates to our past lives. Yeah, you can do the mantra Ah as well. But the mantra La Ra S is to activate this part within us. And doing this, we can then try to actually connect with our past lives to learn. It's important from a psychological standpoint too. It's not just important because it's good or fun, but it's fun. No, maybe not always. Depends on the experience. You know what I mean? But at the same time, you don't want to be on the wrong side of history. You know what I mean? I was. And so what happens here, right, is that we can actually have this experience. So we can experience, but what we can experience too is the psychology as well. Do you know what I mean? Like, my father once had an experience. He was yelling at the kids. He was going, "Yeah, get ready for school, rah." And then he did a lot of practices. He was trying to work on the ego. He was getting upset it wasn't working. And then he had this astral experience, and he saw himself in Atlantis, yelling at the kids, telling them to get ready for school, and them not getting ready. And he's like, "Oh my God, I've been having the same problem with them for a whole age, and I'm still." And now after that, he's like, "You know what? Whatever." And he ended up taking my little sister to school in her pajamas once, because he's like, "Whatever. Sure, you don't want to get dressed? Okay, fine. We're leaving now." "What? Get in the car." "What?" She showed up to school in pajamas. He called her bluff, because he just didn't care anymore. He's like, "I'm not going to get angry. I'm not going to play the game." So this is past lives. Another way is that and I'm going to teach you astral projection. That's sort of the main part of the talk. If we can project into the astral world, we can go to what's called the Akashic record. And this is where all of the knowledge of all of our past lives, not just our past lives, but it's the knowledge of the whole world. It's like that. There's a very good movie called Defending Your Life with, can you help me out?
Albert Brooks.
Albert Brooks.
Meryl Streep.
And Meryl Streep. Thank you. It's a bit of an older movie, so I couldn't name the actors because I'm not that old. Not that Hamish is. He's a beautiful young man.
That's all right.
The man laughing in the background is the, just so we all know, for you playing at YouTube, the man laughing in the background is the one and only reader of the Revolutionary Psychology on the channel. Just so we know. Okay. Chapter 1. Okay. So, anyway, that movie's really quite funny, but it's about a man who dies, and he lives a very materialistic life. He's very selfish. It's set in he's in the 80s. And he dies in a silly way. I remember Dante, he's driving. Dante thinks it's very funny. Picking up his CDs. And you remember he's talking on his car phone, because before mobile phones, there was just landlines. And then in between mobile phones and landlines, they had landlines in your car, around the same time as cell phone, pages that didn't work. And so he's talking on his car phone, which wasn't illegal back then. It just wasn't really a thing. And then he's there, and he drops some CDs on the ground, and he turns into a truck, and blah. And then it shows him waking up in the afterlife, and then he has to defend his life in a court of law to prove that he didn't live a selfish life, so that he can then go on to the next level of creation. It's a beautiful movie. We've watched it retreats here many times. It's a lovely film, and basically he has to show that he's able to go forwards. It's defending, like as in to defending your life. Yeah. It's from the 80s. I have it on the computer. I didn't illegally download it, but it's just there in a file. Anyway, so if you guys want stuff like that, I can put it on a drive. I have lots and lots of stuff like that. Really interesting esoteric films. But so yeah, he has to defend his life in a court of law. It's a lovely film. And that's how it is. Basically, it shows that process after death, that 3.5 days, where we have to actually answer, where our whole life is reduced to a mathematical point, and then it's weighed upon the scale. And so it shows, it's very funny. He falls in love with a woman who's like the opposite. She's like, just lived a beautiful life, has done everything, charity, wonderful, and she's going to go forwards. She's going to go to the next level of creation. She gets on a bus to go forwards, and he has to get on a bus to go back because he was so selfish, And it's quite a wonderful, I highly recommend it. So, but in that movie, there's a bit where they go and they can look at their past lives. It's called the Past Life Museum, and they go in there, and then you like press a button, and you get to see yourself in a past life, and it's like there's this. The little old lady sees herself as like a sumo wrestler, and there's the old man sees himself as the little girl sees herself as like the old man sees himself as a dog. That's why he's like, what the hell? And the little girl sees herself as like, is it like the samurai or something? And it's quite funny, but this is true. You know what I mean? It's so we can go to the Akashic record, and we can see that at the moment, it's so hard for us. Our history is such a mess. You know what I mean? Like, our history is such a, even day to day, people talk about things that you don't know. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, you don't really know how things happen anymore. Everyone's recording everything, and the truth is still not there somehow. So, if we want to see the reality of what's happened in history, we should learn to astrally project and go to the Akashic record so we can see how it was. That's what it is. The Akashic record is the record of the Akash, which is the Tattva, the etheric Tattva that stores within it the imprint of everything that's happened in creation. So you want to see what happened in Atlantis? Go to Atlantis. Don't read the book. Go, it's really controversial. Oh, I don't know. I don't want to read it. So then go and see how it happened. This is how the Theosophists, all of the knowledge that we usually have about Lemuria and Atlantis was mostly by these really powerful clairvoyant Theosophists, and that who actually went and saw it and then wrote books about it, like what's her name? Helen Petronova Blavatsky, Dion Fortune, Alice A. Bailey. There's heaps of these. They all went, and they Steiner, Leadbeater, they all went to try and experience Annie Besant, and then they wrote it all down. Max Heindel. I can't go on. I can't remember the rest of the names. But so Go to the Akasha. Okay, that's a past life. The second one I'll talk about is a symbolic astral experience. This is a little more common, but, well, not as common as mental projection, but we'll get there. A symbolic experience. See, the astral itself talks to you in symbols. You see, the astral is the emotional world. And to take back to the physical body an emotional sensation is quite hard. And so, but the astral talks in emotional, it's like an emotional language and a symbolic and an archetypal language. And so, you know, if we want to bring back an understanding, it's usually something very symbolic, you know. And things are very rarely given to us directly in the astral because that would just be intellectual. You know, you don't usually have an experience where it just goes, you should sort your life out directly. It's usually you see yourself falling from a great height and then you stop and you think about what's going on. And the more you look at it, you go, and you get that moment of, and this emotional comprehension kind of dawns as you begin to understand what it's about. And that feeling, that feeling and that truth is then transferred from the astral down here into physical. You see what I mean? And so it's something quite beautiful. So, yeah, the symbolic dreams and learning the symbolism of the astral, Samael gives a beautiful explanation. He says, study the tarot. You know, study the tarot, the Kabbalah. You know, this is all symbolism. You know what I mean? On here is all the symbolism that is archetypal symbolism. You know, I remember a friend of mine, an old friend of mine, actually, runs his own YouTube channel, Mr. Richard Ruock. Yeah, an old friend of mine. I remember I remember when he very first started coming to Gnostic classes with my father, he had an internal experience, and it was like all his internal experiences were like anime movies. You know, he was like fighting with a bunch of guys with swords, and there were like zombies attacking him, and he was shooting things with machine guns, and he was getting blown up by a bomb, and all this sort of stuff. Because all he ever did was watch anime and movies, but all really violent, specifically very violent, very, very, very violent stuff all the time. And most of his spare time was spent on the internet looking up violent stuff, very interested in violent things, you know. And so, you know, his archetypes inside, he didn't really have any archetypes to be spoken through. Do you understand what I mean? The symbolism of his experiences was lacking. And I remember saying, we were talking to him about that once, and he gave a lecture once about it because he got really strongly into theosophy, et cetera, which is why he runs a channel about that nowadays. But he, it's interesting, you know, once he started to actually study these things and meditate and study the tarot, study the Kabbalah, study all these mystery systems and start to understand archetypes, his dreams then began to settle down, and he actually began to have more symbolic dreams that he could really understand, as opposed to just sort of wash and mess. Yeah. So the dreams that we actually have most are what we call a mental projection. A mental projection is basically where we pretty much just dream. I guess we're technically in the astral world, but it's more like we're just sort of projecting something. Actually, it's more down here, you know, in the physical body. We're sort of just projecting something, usually from the day. These show up in the 5 centers of the human machine. So in other words, we have intellectual mental projections, you know, the classic one of reading the books and the nonsense from the day. If you had a very intellectual day, like answering lots of emails, and then at nighttime you're answering lots of emails. Yeah? You do a day where you're there was something we did recently. I just had a really big day. I don't remember what I was doing now. Like a physical day. Yeah. Yesterday we were working on the car all day, and then the evening as I was going to sleep, I was having fever dreams. I was really sick. And like I started sort of dreaming about the car. You know, like, I've got the van, and how am I going to do that? And you know, like, because it's a fever dream, so like everything just started getting longer, like trying to put things, and I kept mismeasuring things, like, you know, it's hard. And, you know, I was just so sick. So, you know, dreams of the emotional center, you spend the whole day in the emotions, and you have these emotional dreams, you know, silly arguments, and, you know, talking with people on the phone for a long time. You then have experiences, you know, you can just have these very mechanical dreams like that. The nightmares, which are dreams of the instinctive center, which is why it's interesting when you overeat, for instance, or have cheese before bed, as everybody knows that cheese before bed is considered to be something that can give you nightmares. I've read a lot about it. I've just heard people say that. I can't confirm myself as a person. As a person who used to have toasted cheese before bed all the time in my teenage years, I don't think I can confirm it, but I've heard people say it a lot. But you know when you like eat a lot before bed, it can give you nightmares and funny dreams. That's the instinctive center, you know? Same thing, you spend a lot of time watching scary movies where you're filling your instinctive center with fear, you're going to dream about it. That's the exact same thing. You spend your whole time watching dramas and the movies, you dream about it, which is the emotional center. And same thing, motor center, you spend the whole day just working in the body, like I was saying before, and then we go to sleep mechanically. We're not meditating, or when we just have these mechanical mental projections. You know, that's actually the most common type of dream, and we usually don't even remember it. Okay, so that's it. That's symbolic. Now, the last one, which is going to be the topic of our talk, is the astral projection, which means when your astral body that's within your physical body actually leaves your physical body and you go into the astral world, and you go into the astral world awake. That's the point. So, and to break into the astral world, it's exactly the same as I am here and now. Normally, when we go to sleep, we enter the first state of consciousness. Remember, the first state of consciousness is complete unconsciousness, meaning the whole body is completely asleep, and we ourselves, our consciousness remains asleep. We have no control. The dreams that come, we are in them, but we're not really making the decisions. When you wake up in the morning, it's kind of like watching a television show. You sort of go back and go, oh, it's like watching a TV show while falling asleep, you know? You sort of catch bits of it and you're like, oh, yeah. And so, do you remember what happened in the show last night? Oh, I think Cynthia's getting together with Paul or maybe David. I can't remember. Yeah, that's what it's like, you know, because you're half asleep. So your consciousness is asleep. So usually we go to sleep. We go from the second state of consciousness, which, as we said before, is awake but asleep. Yeah, I think it's called the vigil state. I can't remember. And we move to the first state, which is the complete, so unconsciousness. We move from sort of I guess this is like subconsciousness during the day, where the consciousness is asleep and we're mostly being moved by our subconscious, you know, which is what everyone does. You know, they just go to work and the subconscious just ticks over all day. You know what I mean? Okay, next. But if we were to, when we go into the astral, we actually move to the third state of consciousness, which is called self-remembering. Oh, gosh. Self-remembering, or it's also often called self-consciousness. But that's one of those complicated words in English, because to be self-conscious just makes it sound like you're just kind of having a bit of a down, feel a bit self-conscious. You know? When in reality, self-consciousness is actually sort of an awareness of our own internal state. And that precedes complete awakened consciousness, which is the fourth state. So we then move into the third state of consciousness. Yeah? And moving into the third state of consciousness means that we're awake. So our consciousness is awake in that moment. Yeah, we're experiencing our consciousness. And that's because we are awake in a different dimension of nature. In this physical world's one thing, but we're actually awake in the different dimension. You know, one of the only things that you can experience in the physical world that's outside of the physical dimensions. Do you guys know what it is? It's fire. Do you know what I mean? Sorry?
The only thing you can experience in other.
The only thing that you can experience in the physical world that's of another dimension. It's fire. You know? Because within the fire, and that's what it means, fire, electricity too, technically. That's why people see the lightning storm and they just sort of stare at it, you know. And you know, like the fire, when you look at the fire, it sort of draws you in. Even a candle, it draws you in. Yeah? Because it's an energetic substance. It's actually something of a higher dimension. And it really draws us in, you know what I mean? Now imagine living in that energetic world. Just looking at a fire fills you with something. It sort of inspires you somehow. You know, when you sit around the fire at night, like, whoa. We were talking before, one of the main things that we really miss about in the nights in the winter is having the fireplace. You know, I grew up with an open fireplace in my house in the chimney. It was lovely. And you just sit with it, you just watch the fire, you know, because it's an etheric, you're actually seeing into the etheric world, you know. That's what that thing is. It's pure energy, which means it's etheric. So that's why it hits you like, wow, you know, so much power. Now imagine being in that world, because the astral is above that. So the astral is a world of pure energy, really. It's something really quite beautiful. So when you awaken your consciousness, when you are awake, aware of yourself in that reality, your consciousness wakes up a bit, because you are experiencing something outside of the normal physical world, and it shocks you. That's why when you go to the astral, it's like, wow, oh my God, I'm awake in my dream, and it's just as real as it is here. You ever wake in your dreams, son?
No.
You ever wake up in your dreams? Yeah, and it's just like this. Yeah, I touch my hand, it feels like that. The wall. Yeah, it's just as real as it is here. I know I've had to say that to people because some people have never experienced the astral before. Not properly, I mean like awake, like that. And it's just like this. And it blows your mind, But it's just like this, but you can fly. It's just like this, but you can breathe underwater. I have a lot of that in the astral. For some reason, a lot of times I wake up in the astral, I'm underwater and I'm breathing. I gotta be careful, because sometimes I go out in the water and I feel like the sensation. I'm in the water and I'm like, I should just breathe. I have that sensation a lot. Sometimes when I'm meditating, I start feeling like I'm underwater and I start breathing and it feels beautiful. It's a very strange feeling because I feel like this sort of heavy, instead of air, which is very light, I feel like this heavy water coming into the lungs and out again. It's a very interesting sensation. There's just like a little side note. This is very interesting. You know that you have a physical personality, okay? You have the normal physical, psychological personality. But did you know you also have an astral personality? Your astral body has a personality. And my astral personality likes breathing underwater. I've had that experience so many times. Yeah, all the time. Very interesting experience, But you may see that if you begin to remember your dreams a lot and begin to still to keep a note, which we'll talk about here about keeping a dream journal, you can actually become aware of there's actually a personality that we have within the astral itself, So anyway, to continue on, so we want to begin to awaken in the astral. So, and that's what we're going to talk about here. So to awaken in the astral, to begin, because normally we awaken in the astral, it's like a by chance. You're just there, and one night you wake in the astral. It's like, oh, yeah, you woke in the astral before, Ellie?
When I was like 5.
Still, it's pretty cool.
I literally just floated up above my bed for felt like forever.
It's just I just floated above my bed forever. It was not that big of a deal, But like floating, floating's not that big of a deal.
No,
Wonderful.
I never really understood it because when I woke up in the morning, I was literally on the floor.
Oh,
I
okay.
wasn't caught up in blankets. I was on the floor. It's pretty funny.
That is a pretty funny experience. So, how do we go to the astral? How do we control this process? Yeah, because you can do it. You young children, you have far more capacity going to the astral than us old folks, full of horrible concepts and disgusting personality traits, and was it reminiscing on degenerated behaviors, etc., that we were doing before class? All this sort of stuff, right? You guys, the light of the consciousness still shines within you. Yeah, the astral body is yours for the taking. Okay, let's talk about how do we go consciously? How do I take my astral body out of my physical body? And just as a side note, so we all know, there is nothing dangerous about going to the astral. You can have a scary dream. I woke up once inside inside a nightmare. I was staying at my aunt's house in Melbourne. Melbourne. I don't like Melbourne. I'm not going to go there, but I just, I know, but it's just me. It's me. It's my problem. But I was staying at my aunt's house in Melbourne. This is true. Across from her road's like a church, and out front that's like a Goodwill bin, and people just left all these old mattresses, and we made like a fort in it. And then I got like a really bad asthma and almost died. But what else I found in that fort was someone had just donated a giant black skull. And I remember thinking to myself, like, who puts a giant black skull in a Goodwill bin? Do you know what I mean? Like, of all the things, what would you put into an op shop bin for the poor? Would you put mattresses make sense, but like a skull, a black skull, it just seems like so messed up. Anyway, I took it. My dad put a candle on and kept it for ages. What's that?
I just said it's handy in Halloween.
Yeah, exactly. My dad kept it for a really long time. It was actually used to sit out the front of our house, this black skull. My dad would be like, it symbolizes the psychological death. And then one day someone knocked it over and that was the end of it. Actually, maybe, I can't remember. I don't remember what happened to it, but we had it for a while. But anyway, I was in that room and my aunt was a massive drinker and had all sorts of other problems. And I had nightmares every night I was staying in her house, every night. I was actually kind of semi-afraid to go to sleep. I just hated that place. And then anyway, one night I was having this nightmare and I was being attacked by the characters from X-Men. You guys don't know what that is, but it's boring. And I was being attacked by the characters. They were sort of semi, I was like a wolf girl. And then suddenly I realized I was in the astral. I was like, wait a second. I'm not normally in a giant black hole being attacked by the characters from X-Men. And so, I'll talk to you about this in a minute. I checked to see if I was in the astral. One of the things you can do is you can pull your finger. And if you're in the astral, because it's only 20, the astral is a world of, the astral only has 24 laws. Yeah? The physical world, merged to it right here. The astral only has 24 laws. The physical world has 48. So it has half the amount of laws. Things like gravity and stuff don't exist there, so you can fly. But another one is time and space doesn't exist. You can be ubiquitous. You can be in two places at the same time. A lot of things. But one of them is your body is not constrained. It's ductile, so you can pull it. So I went to pull it, but I was in the astral, so I went to pull it, and my finger came off. Just like here. Yeah, my finger just came off, yeah? And it just came off. Oh, and I was like, it came off. I'm in the astral. You can't just pull your finger off. And then I started so I started trying to fly out of the nightmare because there was a little hole in the ceiling because I was in the abyss. Because you can experience in the astral, you can experience all the way up the Kabbalah, but you can also experience the abyss that is beneath the Kabbalah. Yeah, we do that a lot. We go to the inferno all the time in our dreams. You have those horrible sort of like hell dreams, like where you just end up in some sort of hell. That's experiencing the abyss, the 9 regions of the inferno. That's all. Yeah, I could go through them and I could spend the whole night talking about astral experiences, but I'm probably going to do it anyway. But you know what I mean? Like, I had another one, same thing. I was with a whole bunch of people, and I was we're also going into a movie theater, and I was just sort of walking along in the astral. I kind of got jostled. People were all around me, and I kind of got pushed with the crowd, and we were pushing me, and then we went down 3 flights of stairs, and then into the theater, and then I wasn't really paying attention, and then suddenly the movie went to start, but the movie didn't start. Instead, it was white noise. What do you call it when it's just I know it's white noise. What do you call that on the screen? Distortion? I can't remember. Just, crackling, Sorry?
Static?
Yes, static. That's the word. It was just static. And then everyone just started going like this. Everyone in the whole room just went like that. And then they went up this and they went, oh, like that. Oh. And I was just sitting there going, uh-oh. I'm like, I'm in the wrong place. I was like, oh no. And then I suddenly remembered, 3 flights of stairs. I'm in the 3rd region of the abyss. Oh no. I've accidentally let myself go, the astral body, I've let myself go to the 3rd region of the abyss. And then so I went down, I was like, oh. And then, like the people with the men in the aisles, the ushers. And suddenly one of the ushers went like that and saw me. I was like, and I like hopped up and I started running, and then I got this huge hand just came out of nowhere and just grabbed me and just crushed me. It was quite painful actually. But I just said the astral's not dangerous, but it's not dangerous. Nothing happened physically. It was extremely painful in the astral. When I came to, I was like, whoa, that was crazy level of pain. But I was completely fine. Do you know what I mean? Nothing had happened to me. I wasn't in pain. So you can experience the lower worlds or the higher worlds. I've had some beautiful experiences, but mostly, unfortunately, lower because I'm a bit of a glutton. So I would often get dropped into the abyss, you know what I mean? Because the cake was really good. I had a 2nd, maybe 3rd piece, sometimes 3.5 piece, Anyway. And so, yeah, I've been to the lower spheres way too much, Anyway, so we can do that. We can experience up and down. And it's good to awaken the astral so that you don't have to go down. You can go up. You can experience the superior worlds, yeah? I'll talk more about keys, but like, for instance, one of the keys you can do in the astral is if you want to go up, you can spin clockwise like that to move you up into the upper dimensions. You have to concentrate. And same thing, you want to go down, you can turn the other way, counterclockwise. Be a little bit careful that one. You're not so good with your lefts and rights. Maybe there's another thing you can do. Like if you're dyslexic, maybe be careful because you can end up in the 9th sphere of the abyss when you're trying to go to the 9th heaven. You're trying to experience Keth there, and you might end up in the deepest region of Cliff Hoth. But anyway, It's fun. You're not going to get hurt. You're just going to maybe have some problems. Okay? So, how do we get there? How do we wake up? Let's talk about it. So, one of the ways is what's called the key of discernment. Now, the key of discernment is requires self-observation in your normal life, and it has to do with awakening your conscious in your normal daily life in a very simple way. And you kids can do it. I strongly suggest you do it. Yeah, which is observe around you, and when something happens that's outside of the ordinary, test to see if you're in the astral physically. So, for instance, one of the very famous ones here, I remember being in Byron Bay here. I was just, when I very first got to Byron Bay, 13 years ago, 14 years ago, long time ago. And I remember they had, I came to town, and I think about 3 days after I arrived, I went and walked into the town, up James Street. And then suddenly, there was naked people on their bicycles literally everywhere. Like absolutely everywhere. And I just come from Adelaide, and Adelaide's quite a well-to-do town. You know what I mean? Like we still have church on Sundays, and everything's shut on a Sunday in Adelaide. Probably not anymore, but back then, everything, when I was growing up, everything was shut on a Sunday, even Bunnings. You know what I mean? It's just it's a city of churches, man. You know, it's just very traditional and boring. Anyway, so I went there, and suddenly there was just naked people like everywhere. And I was like, what the hell's going on? And, you know, everyone, old, young, everything, you know, mostly old. And I was like, oh my God, what's going on? So I checked if I was in the house. I pulled my finger, but nothing happened, you know? And yeah, it turns out, and then I asked someone, I said, what's going on? And they said, oh, at the time, I think it was a no coal seam gas thing. But it was like they do it every year, right? Yeah, the naked background. Exactly. Exactly. I wasn't ready for it because there I was, a young man. I didn't know of the ways of Byron Bay and of the liberty of riding naked through town. And I didn't know about the tea tree lakes and all this sort of thing, and that it was just a normal thing. But it threw me off. So I checked I was in the astral. It could be the same thing, you know? Imagine you go there and someone's, I don't know, you know, you're you can go to the bank and someone's really generous or something. And so you just go and pull your finger because that doesn't happen. You know, you go to the post and there's no line. You go to the post office and you walk in, there's no line. And the post says, would you like to come right down? You go, I must be in the astral. Because usually you go to the post office, you got to wait at least like 20 minutes in line, you know what I mean? And you got to walk through the little like maze of small toys and things, you know what I mean? And random objects they want you to buy and gum, you know? And so you check you're in the astral. Yeah, like these small things that are outside of the ordinary. This is called the key of discernment. You're trying to be aware of. And what we're doing is we're looking, am I here physically or am I in the astral? You know, we ask ourselves, what dimension am I in? You know, Samael talks about the key, you know, like the Bermuda Triangle, which is a state of Jinnas, which is the fourth dimension. Things like that. He said that there are moments like that where it can happen that we're actually going somewhere and a fourth dimensional rift can open up and we just walk into it. Like you're walking somewhere and you suddenly see two shops like right next to each other. You walk into the wrong one, you go to the fourth dimension. Suddenly you're on the back of a milk carton, missing person. Well, there's no milk cartons anymore. You're on Facebook, missing person. Do you know what I mean? That's it. Yeah. You're not even getting put in the bottle of Coca-Cola like all the other missing people. I probably have to remove that. Anyway, continuing on. So you know what I mean, right? So this is the key of discernment. So the other thing you can do is a little jump. Yep. So, but you know, you want to be discreet because, you know, sometimes you're in public or something and something weird happens, you know, and then you're just kind of like, you know what I mean? Like that. I used to do it at work sometimes, you know. I try and like pass it off as a skip and be like, do you know what I mean? Like, you know, like, oh, you know, like I just think I'm just going to jump over the machine. I actually did this at one place I used to work. I used to jump over to the machine kind of as a joke. I made a joke about it one time, and then whenever I did it, everyone just assumed it was Mick being a bit weird. Great idea, because that means I could just jump over here and no one would care, you know, because he's just that idiot who jumps. But you're not just allowed to jump. You have to jump with the intention of flying, you know. You know, it's got to be intention. You can't just jump and be like, oh, well, nothing happened. Because you know what's going to happen? You're going to go to the astral, and because the astral is a reflection of the physical, you're going to do these things. So if you check and you pull your finger when something weird happens physically, you're going to do that in your astral. That's just what's going to happen. And the same thing, if you get in the habit of jumping, but if you do it mechanically, meaning you just go and not think about it, you know what's going to happen? You're going to go to the astral And in the astral, something weird's going to happen. You're going to go, I guess I'm in the astral, I don't know, whatever. And you're not going to do it. Yeah? You're not going to jump and then go, oh, like the giant, the giant purple balloon person in the, in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Oh, gosh, Sorry? Ah, there you go. Yeah, see, these kids are they're well read. You know what I mean? Because we haven't watched the movie, So, okay, this is discernment. Jump. You can also run through a wall, but I suggest that you be careful with this one. Yeah, in the movie, the running monastery goats who runs at the wall. I've got this one. I actually do a little test. I go like this. I go like that, but I do it behind myself like that. Try and put my hand through the wall. Because it's like that. I did it once. I went to the astral once. I was in a meditation. I was having a beautiful experience in the meditation. It was a lovely meditation. Suddenly, I must have fallen asleep because suddenly I was sitting there and I realized I was in the astral. I got up from my body and I saw my body. I was like, oh. I said, I'm in the astral. This is great. So I jumped up and I started flying up through the ceiling, but then I got stuck in the ceiling because like halfway through the ceiling, I was like, my mind's like, bro, you can't, man, what are you doing? You can't just go through a ceiling. And I was like, and like my stomach was sort of stuck and then my leg was over here and I was like, no, I'm fine. And then suddenly back in the physical body. It's like, man, So honestly, most of my astral projections have only been a few minutes, like very little time. We can talk about that, but one of the reasons for that is that it's actually quite hard to maintain consciousness in the astral. It's quite heavy. It's quite hard to sort of keep that up, because we don't have enough energy, And so it can be quite difficult. But we keep doing it? Sure. So that's the key of discernment, beginning to ask yourself, where am I right now? What's my location? Am I here in the physical world or am I in the astral? Ask yourself that. Get up in the morning and go, am I awake or am I still in the astral? And then do a quick pull, because you might be in the astral. You might have actually done that thing where you wake up before you wake up. Fantastic. Yeah? There's no time in the astral. So you can wake up 5 minutes before you're supposed to wake up and have a 2-hour astral experience. That's how it works. Yeah? Sometimes you dream at night. You have a dream that lasts for like 10 minutes, you slept for 8 hours. Sometimes you have a little nap, little sneaky nap. I used to do that my old job that made me work a double shift. So I was in charge of cleaning out the back room, and no one ever cleaned it out properly. So I cleaned it all out perfectly. I absolutely cleaned it spick and span. Stayed late one day, and then I made a pallet bed. And then I used to go and meditate on it, and sometimes I just like lie and just put like an alarm on my watch, just fall asleep, And sometimes I had an astral experience in the middle of a working day at Hudson's Coffee Rundle Mall, the middle of Adelaide. I'd be experiencing the greater mysteries of life and death, and then going back and making lattes, So, anyway, yeah. So, okay, asking what reality I'm in. The next is to go to bed with the intention of getting back up. This is hard. That's a hard one, isn't it? Because usually you go to bed and you're just like, I can't wait to sleep. It's fantastic, because, for reasons. It's been such a long day. You deserve this, You've had a long day. You deserve a good sleep. What's that thing? Was it a big hard thirst deserves a nice cold beer? Yeah. A big long day deserves a nice soft sleep. Yeah. I've earned it, So you actually have to go to sleep with the intention of getting back up. It's a lot harder than it sounds. So you literally go to sleep and you lie down. That's it, lying down. And you're thinking, I'm going to get up in a minute. Yeah. The other way too is you can then get up too. You can actually lie down, and then what you're going to is actually wait for the moment in which you are just about to fall asleep. I think what is Samael called? Anahata or something? I forget the term for it. It's not anahata. It's ananhata. I forget the term. I have to find it. But there's a moment when just before the astral body leaves the physical body, the astral is always tethered by the Antakarana cord. So all your body's connected through the belly button together in this long cord, yeah? So you're never going to just go in the astral and never come back. Don't worry about that, But just be careful, because there are a lot of old books that talk like that, and it's all nonsense. So just as you're about to split, the two bodies are about to split, there's like a sound, I remember the Indians, I believe they refer to it as being like the sound of the ocean, like 1,000 waves crashing. I heard it once. I heard it, and I thought it was as usual, because I've been raised completely Western, scientific. There's no joy in the world. Do you ever see that? Do you remember that one of the very original, before memes, they had self-depreciation things, those black background, and it goes, if you wish upon it, it's a picture of a star. It goes, if you wish upon a star, was it your 10,000s too late? 10,000 years too late. That star has already gone out, just like your dreams. The star's dead, just like your dreams. That's how it was, So my mind just goes, oh, it's just the sound of blood rushing strongly through the ears, But I got up, and this is true. I got up, and this is during my missionaries course in 2009. I got up out of bed. It was really hot, super hot. I was taking a day nap, and it was like 40-something degrees, and there was no aircon, no fans. And I was lying there all sweaty, and just like, I need to sleep. And I got up, and I'd had a really heavy lunch, because Ruby's father was the one doing the cooking, and he would like cook too much food for dinner, and then he'd try and like force it on you over lunch. And I was a man of weak will, and it was so good. and so I did, and I went to try and get up, and so like imagine I was lying like that, right, in the nice, well, there were beds with the springs were just so dead. This Christian missionary center, you got to sag like that, and I was lying there, and then I got up, and I sat up, and then I my legs went under the bed, like through the bed, and then I couldn't disconnect my stomach from my physical stomach, my astral stomach. They were like stuck together, and I was going like that inside my body. I was like, and I was pushing like this, like I couldn't. They just refused. It was like all of the digestion, all this I'd overeaten. I couldn't get out of the. It's funny. It's happened twice. I only just remember the other time from when I was that was when I was 17. The first time I was pushing my belly like that. Oh, come on, get out of the bed. I had my hands on the sides of the metal bed, like and then back. I was like, damn it. I go back to the astral body, back to the physical body. Sorry. So. Yeah, so we can get up. The other thing you can do is you can get out of bed. And I remember doing this heaps and heaps and heaps when I was younger, because my dad taught me how to astral project. And we'd be lying there in the meditation room in Adelaide, the only room in the house for some reason the mosquitoes wouldn't come into. And so I'd lie there, and then I'd get up when I thought I was falling asleep, and then I'd step up, and then I'd do a little jump and try to float, and then lie back down. And I remember, and if you do it properly, you get up, and then you float, and you lie back down. And when you do it, don't look at the physical body. If you look at your body, the body has a special sort of mechanism in it that draws the astral body back into it. And the reason, that's why you always come back. Otherwise, you just stay in the astral. The physical body has a magnetism that pulls the astral body back. So if you do project, the reason why you pull your finger or check the wall or jump and not look back is because if you look back, you're probably going to go straight back to the body. And that's what happened to me. I was getting up. I did it for about a couple of weeks. Every night before we go to sleep. I couldn't sleep very well, but so I'd get up and I'd try and jump, and I'd lie down again, get up, jump, lie back down again. And I was doing there's a Christian invocation you use, which is called to the little heaven Philip, which is to work with the part of the being related to our interior Philip, which has to do with the transition between the different bodies. Yeah. And so moving from the physical body, astral body, I can keep saying this to the little heaven Philip, to the little heaven Philip, to the little heaven Philip, amen. And I was doing this over and over and over again because my dad taught it in class. And I wanted to try and see if I could do it. And I was getting up and jumping. And then remember I told you about being mechanical, kids? I told you about being mechanical? Wow. I kept doing it, wasn't working, and then I was getting frustrated. And then finally I got up and I jumped, and I was like, oh, it's not working. I turned around and I saw my body. Because I wasn't actually flying anymore. I was just getting up and jumping. This isn't working, and then lying back down. I was like, no, I jumped and I turned around. And there was my body. I was like, oh. I was like, no. My dad just hears, because he used to sleep, like, my parents had broken up, and I used to sleep next to my dad there when it was really hot in that one room. Anyway, and I was just there, and I was like, oh, are you okay? Oh, I just got in the astral, but I didn't. And so, yeah, so you can do that as well. Okay. And so, yeah, that has to do with the awareness of that moment. Yeah, it's called the anahat, the sound that we hear as the bodies are about to break. When the physical body when the astral body is about to leave the physical body. Okay, so continuing on, the next key is to keep a dream journal. This is very good. You see, one of the biggest problems of going to the astral, inability to remember your dreams. It becomes harder. It's easier when you're younger. As you get older, the world becomes more fascinating. You know what I mean? All that good, fascinating stuff, like having a job, paying rent, paying bills, sorting out your relationship problems, all those nice, fascinating things. You know what I mean? And the other nice, fascinating things, going, what is it? Nice food, good times, lovely outdoor things, etc. But we get fascinated, and then we forget about the internal worlds, and then it's much harder for us to remember the dreams. So the best way is to keep a dream diary and write it all down, and then read it occasionally to remind you. And what you're going to do is you're going to keep the connection between your physical brain and your astral alive. You can work too with the mantra Hon. This is for repairing the connection. You can use this for any issues with your head too, even headaches. But this can be used for helping your physical memory. But it can also be used Hon. It can also be used to repair the connection so that we can remember our astral experiences. Yep, really fantastic. Okay, so I already mentioned with the awareness when the bodies break, that try and listen for the anahat sound, the sound of the rushing of the ocean. I'll write that down, ocean. Our ears, when the bodies split, and then taking advantage of that to go straight to the astral. Samael says we can also use the mantra while doing this. Obviously, you would do this physically and then start doing it mentally, so that if you keep going physically, you're not going to fall asleep. So, yeah. Okay. So the next thing, of course, is to talk about the different mantras that can assist. Yeah. So the mantras that can assist with this, there's heaps, and we've been talking about them actually over. I always mention my favorite Pharaoh On, which I've mentioned in many, many, many lectures. Which I have noticed that the most replayed option in any of my YouTube videos is always this Pharaoh On. So you want to go to the astral? Fantastic. You can do one of these mantras. Fa, Ra, On. It's an Egyptian mantra. It can be used specifically to take you to the pyramids, or it can just in general can wake you up in the astral. There's this one here, Tai, Re, Re, Re. Yeah, like that. I think these ones are a little bit higher. There's Rusti, Omnis, Baum, Igneus. There's the mantra here. This is to put fire into the astral body. It actually helps to strengthen and empower the astral body, which is F, Ra, In, which is another Egyptian mantra. There's another one here, another Egyptian mantra too. E, Hip, To, which just gives you power over the astral body. One puts fire to the astral body, one puts power, gives you the power over the astral body. Again, very good, gives you the ability to go to the astral a bit easier. Then Lara, different to Laras. Laras is specifically for remembering past lives. La, Ra can be used just for going to the astral. And then to the level Little Heaven Philip, which I have already talked about. And it's very simple. Take any one of these and do it for a month. Yeah. Keep doing it. Work with it. Yeah. The problem is we are so asleep. We have spent years and years and years and years and years becoming completely fascinated with banal nonsense. If we want to then start to awaken, we've got to put some effort in. That's all. I remember a guy asked me once, he said, I've never had an astral experience. He texted me. He said, I've never had an astral experience. I want to have an astral experience. What do I do? I said, what do you do for a job? He said, I'm a software engineer. I said, well, you're going to have to take it like a couple of weeks off work. And he's like, what? I said, yep, take a couple of weeks off work and don't use any devices. Camping, if possible, will be even better. And then I'll give you some mantralization, some practices to do, and you'll be able to do it. And he's like, oh, that sounds like a lot. I'm like, okay, come on. So at the end, I said, well, try doing Pharaoh On as you go to sleep. But in his case, it's like he's constantly stimulating the senses, the eyes, overloading himself all the time. We need to try and disconnect. So obviously we'll find that, out in nature. People had when we just lived on the land, people had much better dream capacity, fantastic astral capacity. Yeah? And that's cultural too. We have to remember that. All these different cultures had different connections. Some were connected to the Aboriginal people, were very connected with the astral world, very connected, you know? And it's always different. You know, different, like the Egyptians as well were very strong in the astral. They really, really liked the astral. They had the priests, kings, etc., teaching people about the astral. So wonderful. Okay, the last thing I'm going to talk about is the last thing that we can do to help us go to the astral is to work to strengthen the chakras, because the chakras are the senses of the astral body. Yeah, and in fact, I was given this key from a man who was really quite exceptional with astral capacity. Very interesting man. He was very strange physically. I remember, like, we stayed in the same house, and like, I don't know, he was just very strange. Like we all had dinner together, and he just disappeared like 5 minutes before dinner and came back with a pizza. It was just stuff like that. He just didn't seem to understand social cues at all. But at the same time, he gave me this key, and I used it, and wow, it was good. And he was like a connoisseur of Gnostic institutions. He was from Dominican Republic originally, and then living in New York City. And he'd been to there's like a Gnosis bookshop dedicated to Samael in Mexico, where they have all the books in all the languages from every institution. I don't know if it's still there. And he bought one of everything. He actually sent me my book. I have a book from Oscar's category because I was interested in him because I'd never heard any of his stuff. And he sat there and he told me about all the different, he goes, oh, Vargas does this, and all the different institutions and what they did differently and why each one was this one. He said, oh, I joined Gnostic Society because I think it's the best because of this and this. And then he told me, he said, I'm going to give you the best key to the astral as a Western person, because he said it's hard to know. And his key that he gave me, he said, do the mantra O for 1 hour before bed every night. And he said, you'll go to the astral. So I'm giving it to you. I did it. It works. And I found that if you're not going to the astral, you'll at least have way more symbolic dreams. Way more. Every night I was doing it, I was having pretty much an experience, or every second night. You know, Ruby and I did it for a few months, or a couple of months, at a time after a retreat not too long ago. After we did a retreat on Hamlet. It's a good retreat. And after we did that retreat, I remember Ruby and I did that for quite a while, nights afterwards. And even if I wasn't going, I went to the astral, I think, once or twice, but I was having so many internal experiences, like, you know, because the heart chakra is very related to the astral, you know, through the emotion, but superior emotion too. Now, it's not like I was just having more dreams and I wasn't like I was, you know, in the abyss. I was having more dreams and they were more elevated. They had a lot more to do with my spiritual life, more guidance. Highly recommend that. The mantra O. And I'm going to give you the advice. Start with what you can do. I tried doing the hour the first time and like almost lost my voice. So I think I got to like 45 minutes and I was like, you know, and then I had to keep going to the toilet because I had to keep drinking water. It's a problem, you know. So start. You kids want to do it before you go to bed? Mantra O and Hamsa. It's good for you. You're older now. Move the energies. Good for you. Yeah? Like I taught you. Okay. And you too. Good for you. Make you happy. Yeah? It's good for sleep. I'm kidding. But it's very good for you. Okay. And mantra O. All right. How to activate the astral. Okay. Yeah. So this mantra here. Fe, win, ta. It's like a, if you want to do it properly. Fe, win, ta. You like that? It's more of a, I can't do it very well. You know, it's a Hebraic thing. You know, you do they got like a, you know what I'm saying? That's how it's supposed to be pronounced, like that. But if you can't, you can just do a, just a fe, win, da. That's enough. I did it once with a guy who was trying to do all these mantras like perfectly. And it was like, de, fe, win. And then he was like, dark. It was very intense. I was like, whoa, okay. But yeah, I think it's nicest on the end. Very dark. I can't do it very well. And so this is to activate the chakras of the astral body itself. So our internal chakras, which are in the vital body, also are connected to the astral body. That's why if you develop, for instance, like clairvoyance or intuition or any sort of faculty, that will then carry into your next life, right? Because it comes with the astral body. Yeah. If it was just in the physical world or in the vital world, you wouldn't have it in the next life because you leave the physical and vital body behind. Yeah. So we're talking here. So here, though, specifically activating within the astral body itself. Yeah. To feel these chakras working and activating in the astral world. And that's that mantra there that we can work with. So yeah, if I'm going to be completely honest with you, when it comes to working with the astral, you just got to do it, mate. Just do the mantra and go for it, and work for it. It's if we put the effort in, we'll have the experiences, Even if we're not going straight to the astral, we'll start to live and lead a more rich interior life, And as I've said before, I gave this mantra, really amazing. I gave this mantra to one of my early students, and he was a real techie sort of guy. His glasses, and he used to fix what are they called? FPOS machines for a living. That was his job. You know what I mean? Fix FPOS machines for a living, and then he married a Brazilian lady, and then he was dealing with his intense emotional children, intense emotional wife, and then his FPOS machines, and he used to run away and play games and things to give himself a bit of time. He was a funny guy, but he was a very interesting guy. But I gave this message to him, Farah on, and he did it. He took it. He worked with it for the week, and on that first week, one of the nights he was doing it, he went to the astral 5 times. 5 times. It was amazing. And he said completely the astral. And he at the time he was living, I think, like 14th floor of his paradise, and he said that he was like, he started flying around the room, and then he kept coming to the like balustrade outside, and he wanted to like fly over the balustrade, but he was too scared, because he said it's so real, like it feels just like the physical world. You know what I mean? It's so real, and he just couldn't quite bring himself to so he just flew around the apartment, so he's just flying around the apartment, like through the rooms, like that, I've been to those apartments, they're so dirty, and like that, and he just couldn't quite. He said he'd fly right up to them and stop, and then he'd look over the edge, he couldn't do it, And it's beautiful. He experienced the sunrise in the astral, which is really something special, really special to see the sunrise in the astral, to see the astral light in all of its brilliance, The astral light's wonderful. You know what Samael says? Samael says when the astral light vibrates within something, we fall in love with that thing. And when the astral light vibrates within a flower, we feel the beauty of the flower. Yeah, within the member of the opposite sex, we feel that love, that can then become a relationship and then a spouse. So something really beautiful. So to see the sunrise in the astral is a wonderful, wonderful experience. And so yeah, we can do that. We do that mantra, it'll take us to the astral world. So yeah. Any questions about that? Ready to fly in the astral world?
I have a question.
Yes.
So when people have this, people that fantasize about their past lives.
Yeah.
Some people can say.
Yeah.
How many people say that they were Jesus? How many people say that?
Oh my God! Yeah.
They were Cleopatra. How many people say that there were all these famous people in history that are archetypal?
Yes.
One person said to me they posed an idea about that's the archetypal layer, and that would be in that symbolic, that to stay in that symbolic layer of like if someone is having these experiences, they keep saying that they're Jesus.
Yeah.
Is that an imprint within themselves that's just being reflected back to them? And how because of those notions of
Hmm.
distortions of what we think could be a past life, how do we know if we have gone past those layers, which is just symbolic of coming from our own impressions to actually get to more of the accurate depiction of that past life.
Yes.
And what you just expressed before about having visceral experiences of that and visceral memories in the body now, that's one indicator.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess the question is, what are the defining points between the archetypal world and the past life world?
It's a tricky one because it depends. I mean, the past life experiences that I have that I accept, because I've had experiences as being like where I was sort of talking to people from the past, and other people have tried to say, "Oh, you must be them," and I'm like, "Well, I was talking to them. That's different." You know what I mean? Oh, but you're so much like them now. I'm like, that doesn't really mean anything, does it? Do you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what does that mean? I have a totally different personality in this lifetime. You know, how do you know? You know what I mean? So I've always done it that, you know, when it comes to experience, it really has to be something quite serious. Do you know what I mean? Like actually the proper being in it and experiencing the whole thing. You know what I mean? Rather than just sort of like kind of like a more symbolic experience of that time. Do you know what I mean? Like this right now, like I'm seeing through the eyes of another person. I'm living their whole life, all that sort of stuff. Then there's a few other ones. So one of them is I like it's a saying I heard from an old guru, Indian guru, who was my friend's guru, so Swamiji something Guru Nanda, I forget his name. And he said that the man used to say, if you think you've awakened Kundalini, check for fleas. Meaning you might have got bitten on the spine and so it stings and you think that you've got the fire awake, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I always feel like there's some indicators, do you know what I mean? Like to be a little, I think we should always have a healthy doubt. Do you know what I mean? Like I've always understood it that way, that we should have a healthy doubt and then ask for confirmation. You know what I mean? So if I have an experience about something that's quite interesting, okay, that's very interesting. And then in some prayers, ask the being for confirmation. I'm not talking about something physically, but another experience perhaps, you know what I mean? Or, you know, or something in a meditation, I prefer that, you know, to actually indicate that. And then also to sort of show me why. Like why do I need? Because one thing that happens to us is as we start to go through this sort of part of the second mountain, so if we're practicing alchemy and we go through this whole process, in the second mountain, the ego will have to be dissolved. And I didn't really talk about it tonight because it's just not pertinent, but in that process, we might remember a lot of past lives. And the past lives we might remember might be quite significant because they're usually the ones where you create the most ego. The lives of no consequence often don't. Like, for instance, I know a friend of mine had an experience of being a Native American Indian. And he wasn't anyone important in history. He was just a tribal guy. But it was when the white people were sort of descending and they were bringing their law. And he had an experience of, it was quite a lot, like quite a long experience. He experienced lots of sort of parts. I think he even went back and had other experiences of that same life. And and in that experience, I can't remember, he sort of saw 3 stages. I can't remember, it was 3 separate dreams. But he saw 3 different stages. And in one, it was like before the white man had came, they were sort of living one way, and they were fighting and helping the other tribes fight them. And then over that lifetime, the chieftain decided that he wanted to start sort of creating peace with the tribe, and he didn't want that. You know, he wanted to keep fighting. And then he had this experience. He sort of forwards, and then he saw he got captured or something, and then they had to let them all go because it was like an amnesty thing. It was like the tribes were now at peace, and so they were going to let them all go, all of the prisoners of war. And then he said he was with these 2 guys, and they were saying, "Yeah, we're going to let you go." And he's like, "Okay," but they were putting him in a boat and taking him out to the middle of a lake. And like he said, halfway across the lake, he realized, oh, they're going to let me go. They're just going to drop me in the middle of a lake, let me go. Like, here you go, run free, but then tied you up and tried to stone you and just thrown you to the bottom of the lake, you know what I mean? And he said the anger and hatred that he felt as he was dying, it's like it just cemented onto or imprinted so heavily onto the essence, But also, he said, it wasn't just that; it was like it went inwards and became that sullenness of like, there's nothing we can do. Do you know what I mean? And he said, in this life, he can feel that same defect now. It's that same like, there's just no point. Like, why even fight these guys? You know what I mean? Like, and he said he felt that same defect with dealing with the government and things like that in this life. Because that's what they were, the governing white man. He just, when things started to get too hard, instead of just sort of start dealing with them or talking with them, he would just start getting sullen and just being like, there's just no point. Why even? Well, like just straight like, and so strong. He said once that started, it could take weeks to get out of that state. Really hard to get out of that state because like you're talking about like a death that had that life, that ego was imprinted by a death. And this is what sort of interests us in Gnosis, do you know what I mean? Not and to remember that even though I was somebody important, right, that was the personality then. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not that person now, if you know what I mean. What I do have though is the defects. And that's what's really interesting. I know another person had a similar experience. They were someone fairly important in history, but they had an experience that person actually wasn't quite so nice as everyone said they were. And they were like, he actually had like a private harem that no one knew about. And he actually made that trendy in those days, and that it wasn't before. And he actually saw internally that he had just got huge amounts of karma for that. So even though that person is sort of remembered, even in the Bible, as being someone very important and that they've done a lot of good, he said, actually, I saw that I now have heaps of karma and that I had actually mostly done bad things, basically. Do you know what I mean? And so then he actually saw it that way, So the thing is, you got the other thing too is like, people do all that sort of past life regression and things like that. That's always pretty tricky too, because that's getting really messy. And a lot of that's tricky because you have all these egos inside of you and they're all psychic. All these egos can connect. And like the medium person who's helping you and they're putting you in this state, the ego can just take over and just fantasize and just go. And so if you have like a big ego of anger, it can be like, yeah, I'm Alexander the Great. I'm so great. And that ego can just do that, And if you've actually got old egos of mythomania inside where you think you're this fan, you might have been a priest in an old village and everyone just popped you up to the highest point. You create this huge ego of like, I am the guru. And then, or maybe you were someone moderately important. And so this guy says, I'm Jesus, because it just instantly latches onto some sort of archetype, as you said, like you're the Christ. And suddenly you're turning around saying, I'm the Christ, when in reality, what you're channeling is just an ego. It might not even be yours. It could be someone else in the room. It could be another ego from someone else in the room. It could be anything. It could be just larvae in the atmosphere. And these people got no idea because their consciousness is just dead asleep. And a lot of these stuff's done with drugs too, etc. It's not always, but sometimes. And, this is messy. So my answer is very long-winded. But, my answer really is the ego's a really big part of that. You know what I mean? And I would agree with what you have to say there. That, those egos assume themselves. Big ego of vanity starts saying, I'm Cleopatra, because I'm so beautiful. It's like, and in this lifetime, you're like just this really average person, it's like, yeah, but you know what I mean? It's like, so even if you did have, you may have had a big, but what I wanted to also say is maybe you did have a big life, but what you'll often find is that maybe you had one here and there, but often I find it very interesting that from some of the people I have met who've had something important have often said, like Gnostic people I know, have often said, yeah, but, actually it caused this problem, this problem, this problem, this problem, this problem. Like, my consciousness is basically completely asleep. And basically what I got to at the end of that life, was, wow, I need to find the real teachings because I'm just a massive idiot. And look at what happened when they let me, like when I was let loose with all the karma on my side, I just sort of created this big fat personality, that really was just full of self-love and full of, full of pride. Full of pride. And now in this lifetime, the being doesn't want to go through that again. And it's like, you need to be really humble, But I do agree, man. I don't know. Mythomania is a really hard one because that's what happens to all that sort of stuff. People become mythomaniacs and then, because there's like, we got teachings of Samael here. There's like 6 Samaels in the world right now, and they're all just random guys, some French dudes, a couple of there's a lot of Mexicans. And like, Samael never said he wasn't coming back. So I know it's just messy, And then there's the other thing too. You can have an experience, like, you'll have an experience, for instance, you're going to, UK to teach or something, you have an experience with Arthur, and it's like maybe you're there to actually go and return the teachings to the people. It doesn't mean you were Arthur, you know what I mean? It's just kind of messy, you know what I mean? Like, it's sort of...
You need to identify.
That's right. Yeah, it's right. We have to, and you have to, I feel like you should always be very, I know we still need to have some level of faith, otherwise we're never going to experience anything, but there's still like a level of just a little bit of doubt. That's Thomas in the Bible. He's a little bit of doubt. Not a lot. It's enough. Verification. Without verification, man, you can go down some crazy pathways.
What makes me think of Brian Weiss?
Of what?
Brian Weiss?
No.
Many Lives, Many Masters?
No, tell me.
Well, he was a psychologist in
Yeah.
the 70s.
Yeah.
Very intellectual, academic.
Yeah.
And stumbled upon past life regression.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, and so he's written books about his documentation of the clients that he's worked with and what's come up with them as they've gone into deep states, kind of through hypnosis. And so that's the pioneering of past life regression. He
That's
talks
interesting.
So much about his doubt.
Yeah,
His
okay.
questioning, and then what was affirmed to him through actually seeing it firsthand in his clients.
Their experiences.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's tricky. It's a tricky game, that one. You know what I mean? Even then, my mind always goes to, so what can I learn from the past life? Do you know what I mean? What can I learn from that experience? What can I know about my personality now? And what you see is often that. Like, as I said, I had an experience about being some people and some little things and bits and pieces. Nothing really important. But I have seen little bits and pieces. Like, I saw that, that damage I had to my lungs in this life is from the life before, killing the guy, and I had to hear him dying and wheezing and pain, because his lung was filling up with blood. And it's like, now I have to pay. I've got to pay that karma. That's actually quite useful for us. That sort of stuff's useful. That's a good thing to know your past life experiences for that. Because then you go, okay, that's karma. Okay, I can pay that. Doesn't mean you don't try and heal yourself. Of course, try and heal yourself. But now I know. So there's a little less of, oh, poor me, the stars, oh gosh, and a lot more knowledge of, oh yeah, this is what I'm paying for. This is what I've got to deal with. Have some humility. You know what I mean? So yeah, no, good question.
Yeah, I can share on that. Like, my mom, she's a psychotherapist, and about past life things, her knowledge, like her studies, and this is very spread in Brazil, this kind of modality. And what they say is, like, in past lives, you kind of go collecting personalities in yourself. So and then some personalities, they don't see that they are dead, so they're still kind of acting out in your life, especially when there is interactions. So it could be like your ego, some part of your egos are little part of what you used to be. So that's how like the karmas are dealt.
That's right. Yeah, we talk about the same. Yeah, we talk about that in Gnosis, that the ego continues life to life.
Yeah.
In the personality, the way we talk about that in Gnosis, the personality dies or stays with the past life. Do you know what I mean? And when you see a ghost, it's just the personality of the last person. It's like an imprint. You know what I mean? And what continues is the ego.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing. We're just using different words. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's true. You carry the same egos from life to life to life to life to life.
Yeah, because this is a branch from, I don't know if you heard in Brazil about the spiritism.
Oh, I know what spiritualism. Yeah, I know what that is. Yeah.
Yeah, they come from Allan Kardec, from French man, and in that as well, in that they have a lot about the astral cities and astral bodies. So that gives me a bit of a doubt about if when you are dreaming and you're having your astral projection, if that is the same astral place that you go when you're dead.
What do you mean? The astral? Well, that's different.
Is that kind of the same?
No, I mean, so when you die, you go to limbo, which is the second region of the first region of the abyss, which is just below here. Yeah. But you can perceive all these different parts of the Kabbalah. Usually when you go to the astral, you're here, and when you die, you go here. But you're in the astral body. But the astral body can go anywhere. That's the tricky thing. The astral body can go between all the dimensions, lower and upper of the Kabbalah.
Yeah.
Because it's a very interesting substance. It's something that can, even though it's from the astral world, it can still go to like the mental, the causal, the Buddha. It can experience the higher parts, the dimensions, and it can experience the lower. Do you know what I mean?
I remember when you did the wheel and you said like
Yes.
between lives they go to this intermediate.
That's exactly it. That's limbo, yeah.
After that's limbo.
That's limbo.
That's what.
But limbo still kind of looks like a place. Do you know what I mean? It still looks. The astral's so complicated because, like, it depends on the lucidity, like how clear a person's and how strong their astral faculties are. Do you know what I mean? So people with very strong astral faculties can see and have very strong ability in the astral world. They see everything as it is. Whereas many people, they don't even have an astral body. Yeah. So they're just sort of perceiving kind of like a vague, foggy thing. They don't see things. Like when Samael was talking about the protoplasmatic races, the Hyperborean races, the theosophists like Max Heindel and Steiner and Blavatsky, they could never penetrate that deep. They could never see that with their clairvoyance because they weren't strong enough. They never had that, whereas he saw it, no problem. And so it depends. That's what I'm trying to say. It sort of depends on the person too. The astral is so, yes, of course, it's a physical, like it is a place, but it's not bound by any of the rules of the physical world, which means that like it's just completely different. Like length, space, with none of that exists there. You can go to like a temple in the astral, and you can go from your astral body here just straight to that temple, or you could walk around for months in the astral and never get to it. Because you're in like a different space. Do you understand what I mean? Like it's like the space there is not, like the distances don't exist. It's so cool. But then you can also use your astral body to look at the physical world. And that's what they call remote viewing, where you like use your astral body to look. And that a lot of like, that was really big in the, I can't remember when, it was the 70s and stuff. And they were doing a lot of experiments with that. And there are still people who could do that sort of stuff. They still exist in the special forces of every single military because it's like a higher level of spying, you know what I mean, where they actually try to look on the other person. Even the flipping big corporations do stuff like that. They employ. This is a true story. I met a guy who was employed to do that, and he wasn't crazy. He was a Swiss man who I met. He was adopted by a corporation. Like he was adopted by a man from a corporation, and he's excuse me, and he was adopted by this corporation, the big rich banking firm, huge. They not the actual corporation, but someone within them, and he was an orphan, but he had amazing. I've never met anyone of his level of astral capacity since or then. He could go to the astral anytime he wanted to. He could sit in that chair and he goes straight to the astral, just like that. Just like he sits down, like you and me. We sit down just to have a little rest like that. I close my eyes, not even having to fall. He just go like that, and then straight. He could stand straight back up into the astral. That's how good he was. And he said the man who picked him up knew it. He knew when he was just a child. He was like 7 or 8 or something. And the guy just went around and he had some weird thing. He was testing all the kids and he was looking at them and he just looked at the kid and asked him a couple of questions, did some little tests, and he goes, "Okay, come." And that was it. And he said because the guy was like him, the guy had this amazing astral capacity. He knew the other guy had it, and he went to the orphanage because he went in the astral to find another one in the orphanage. So he already knew he was there. He already knew the kid was powerful. He wanted to see how powerful. And they groomed him to become one of their own. They taught him. The guy was a very successful businessman when I met him, but he was living up in the hills of Madhuraba, like with a whole bunch of weapons and water, and he designed this whole house. And very interesting man. Had some pretty out there. But what happened was he was working for them, and that's what they were doing. They were getting him to spy on other companies and this sort of stuff, and then he was helping them make their stock choices and stuff based upon that. That was his job. And then someone gave him, he somehow came into his hands a copy of like some sort of conspiracy text or something came to him, and he read it, and it was like about like where the way the world was going, and he was like, I'm literally a part of the organization that are doing this. And he said, I know, these guys are crazy. Like, he knows what they were running the world, these guys, through money. And so he said he read that book. You're not supposed to talk about that book. He read that book, and you know what he did? He said he put the book down. He took whatever he could get out of his house that moment, whatever money he had that he could get out quickly. He took it all out. He got on a plane, flew straight to Australia. That's it. He just left because he knew that was it. Like, he's like, I don't want to be a part of these guys. Do you know what I mean? I don't want anything to do with it, because he realized, oh my God, these are the guys. These guys who took me were the ones running the world. And he wasn't just like some crazy guy on the street. I've met people like that. I've met people who tell you stories like that. This guy was the real deal. And I was talking to him, and I said, okay. And then he started a business here, just selling business cards or something nonsense, just to make money, really low level, to keep off the radar. And he did well for himself, living in Sydney. And then he said he used to go to the Astral every night. And then he said his life was just really hard. The business was hard, and he didn't enjoy it. So every night he'd go to the Astral for he said he would be in the Astral for days at night. And then he'd wake up again. And then one night, he said like an angel came to him, like a spiritual being came to him and said, look, you need to make a choice. He said, either you come with me and we keep going into the deeper regions of the Astral. Basically, I'm going to take you to the internal worlds. So what he means is other parts of the vital world and stuff. Basically, just leave into the Astral. Or he said, you need to choose now because you're too much in here. And he went, I couldn't believe he chose physical world. I would just leave. I was shocked. He said he chose the business. He's like, no, I got to keep running my business. I'm like, oh my God. And so he did. He said after that, his astral just gone, all gone. That's it. I think he was 30 at that point. I think he ran away when he was like 25 or something. And then I can't remember the ages very well. And then that was it. And when I met him, he was the real deal. I talked to that guy. He was full on, but he refused to accept the ego. He just refused outright. He came to my class and he was like, the ego doesn't exist. It was just like, I couldn't get it through to him no matter what I said. He was a lot older than me, which made it very hard to talk to. He was like 85. He just refused. Didn't want to listen. The ego doesn't exist. And he was like so angry. But the stuff he knew about is just stuff I'd never even heard about. And my father's really up to date with that sort of stuff. And he was just so next level. He had all sorts of stuff. He was crazy. He's a total doomsday prepper. And but because he'd actually seen it, like proper. Very interesting. Very interesting, man. But yeah, so he'd experienced. So when I talked about the astral, he was like, yeah, I understand the astral really well. But he didn't have any astral capacity anymore. That was it. So do you dream? He said, not really. Like a little bit. But he said, I can't go into the astral anymore like that. He said, I have dreams, but I don't project anymore. He said he hadn't projected since then, 50 years afterwards. What a horrible story. Kind of feel bad ending on that.
And when you are projecting, do you sense the restoring of your vital body?
Oh, no. That just happens while you're sleeping.
Because like when you are projecting, are you sleeping?
Yes, your physical body is sleeping.
So
but you're gone. Literally like this. So you're gone. So here's the body lying like that.
Yeah.
And then out comes the other one like that. And then it goes, and then it leaves.
Yeah.
And slowly it keeps going and it's gone. And that just stays behind. You have no consciousness of the body at all. It's just like when you go to sleep, when you dream, you don't think about your body at all. It's gone. It's just there.
And eventually you have like missions there?
Nah.
Studying or doing anything?
Oh, I wish. No.
So you just walk around.
It depends. It depends what you want to do. The freedom is yours. Yeah? You can do things in the astral. You can I'm sure you could meet masters in the astral. Perhaps they'll give you a mission. I don't know. You know what I mean? But the astral world is like the physical world. You don't get any of this sort of stuff unless you actually go and talk to people and have relationships with people and all this sort of stuff, you know. But if you want to know things, you can go in the astral. Like you want to understand a book, look at the book in the astral and see what happens. You know, because sometimes like the power of the book will show, you know, like the intention of the author and things like that you can't see physically. You know, you can sort of see, you might be able to see it in the astral. I've had an experience like that person want to understand a book and they just sort of like, you know what I mean? They just sort of look at it in the astral, and then they like see like the intention of the author, like an energy on it. I've seen the fabric of I've seen the fabric of the astral a lot, like the energy, I've quite a few times when I was younger, I used to sort of fall asleep during mantras in the class, and then I would see this like fabric of the astral, like the weaving of the energy of the mantras and things like that. So you can see a lot about that. You can understand the Akashic record. You can talk to the masters. You can talk to the beings of creation. You want to understand something about the flowers of nature, go to them. That's how all the original knowledge came to us. Like people have all this like ancestral knowledge, right? Where do you think they got it from? They didn't get it from it's not like, they wanted to understand the, like when you think about like a poison, for instance, that in a very small dose and they've cooked a certain way can become a, what's it called? Like a healing. Yeah. Or something like that, or can heal a person for something else. You don't ever think like, how did they get to that? Like you hear some of these concoctions, like you read Occultism and Practical Magic, there's some crazy stuff in there. And like, how did you ever get to this? Like, how did you ever get to the point of understanding like that you could make this? A lot of these things are told. Samael, he says, a lot of those ones he was told by the elemental. So he sat with the plant and he was meditating, because he used to meditate a lot with the plants. And the elemental came and then tells him how to use it and what to use it for. So the astral is just a place that we can do many things in. You understand what I mean? Many things. You know what I mean? You understand? Like the Kogi masters, the guys in the Sierra Nevada, they're completely awake, these guys, full on, amazing, the mamas. And when Samael wrote The Perfect Matrimony, which is the foundation of the whole Gnostic movement, he took it to them, even though they couldn't read Spanish at all. And the guy who's the head mama just put his hand on the book like that. And Samael said he saw him reading it in the astral, just like that. And then he just went, it's good. And that was it. Like, as in, we approve. He took it to see the masters because he was teaching in Colombia. So he took it up to the Sierra Nevada. It's quite hard to get to them. And then gave him the book. And the guy, he read it in the astral. That's crazy. These guys are amazing. I've talked about them before. They're the same guys who, when they went to that in the second movie, they go to see in the lunar thing, the guys recording him for the documentary, and they were looking at just like hundreds of star charts, and he just like points at one and just goes, that particular star is very important for our world. It has an incredibly strong connection with this world. That particular planet is like dying, and it has to do with the abysses on our planet, and they're related. And the guy who was doing it was like, I can't believe in a map full of dots that all look exactly the same, he pointed to the only planet on the entire piece of paper of 5 different pieces of paper, just one planet. He found it. He's like, what a coincidence. And it's like, no, what an astral capacity. How do they see that? Because they go there in the astral body. He's been to that planet. The mama's sitting there, simply there, just with their simple little tools. He's taken his astral body to that planet and come back. You can do that. You can go to Venus. Don't listen to what people say about Venus. Just go to Venus. You know what I mean? You want to know about Mars? Go to Mars. Is it really just a red rock where little robots draw willies, Or is it actually, or is there something going on there? Go experience it for yourself.
So the projection can come from meditation.
Yeah.
And from sleeping.
Yes. It's a little bit harder to astrally project from meditation because you're actually like awake like you are now. Yeah. And that's pretty jarring. If you're sitting down doing a meditation and suddenly you're kind of like standing up and you're like, oh, that's pretty out there. I found it's much more common during sleep. Okay. That said, I have done it twice while meditating. It's way more common, which obviously just meant, while I was meditating, I fell asleep. Do you know what I mean?
Because I was thinking like about these lovers, they were meditating.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
He has this capacity.
Yes, that's right. Of course. No, you're right. Yeah, of course. So yeah, in the state of meditation, it's the same. Yeah. They would do it consciously, completely awake. And I've met guys like that. I had a guy in one of my other groups who, Ray. I've talked about Ray before. A very interesting man, enigmatic man. But I remember we were doing a circle, we were doing a mantra one night, and I was taking the class. My dad was away, and I was like 17, 18. And I was doing this class with all these guys who are like 50 and their whole life had just like gone down the drain. It's really hard to talk to people when you're like 18, you got your whole life ahead of you, and you come with a bunch of guys who are 50 and like living in the outer suburbs and It was a hard class. But I remember we did a mantra after the class. And Ray, who had one of those astral capacities, just amazing astral capacity, he said, I was talking to everyone afterwards. I was going to try something new. I was going to ask everyone how their meditation was, and he would tell me. I don't do that anymore. And how was your practice? And so-and-so. He's like, I fell asleep. I don't know. Yeah, the mantra was okay. Or, Ray, how was the practice? He goes, well, we were doing the mantra together, and I thought to myself, I'd really like to see what this mantra is doing to the astral environment right now. So I just went into the astral and I saw the form, the geometric form that you were creating in the circle using the mantra. It was a mantra mo. And he said it was so nice that I wanted to go play in it. So I went and lay down in the mantra just to feel it inside my body. And he said it was a really beautiful feeling. So I just kind of lay and floated in that for a while. And I was just like, oh my God. I was like, so were you mantralizing? No, of course not. You're too busy stealing our mantra. Like that guy, amazing. But see, I've met people like that. It's good. We got to balance that with psychological work. Because I know some people with phenomenal, amazing astral capacity, and they just use it to go, like guys like that, just use it to sleep with women. That's it. There's a book. I saw a book. Someone gave me a book once. And it goes, you sleep with any celebrity you want. Go to the astral. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding. And he's giving keys like this, like getting up, keys, special mantric stuff, how to concentrate, special dietary things to keep you just a little bit hungry so that you're a little bit more likely to go to the astral, stuff like that. He's doing all this stuff so that you can go and, sleep with Gwyneth Paltrow. And I was like, no freaking way. That's so invasive. You know what I mean? I've heard guys, and I would say it's not just a book because I know a guy's done that. When he came to my classes, and he said it was a big problem for him growing up because he had an astral capacity, perfect astral, not perfect, very good astral capacity from a very young age. And he said he just used to use it to muck around, fly around at night, and then when he was a teenager, just muck around. You see? So, yeah, it's nice, but we want to have fantastic conscious experiences. Go to the Akashic record. You know what I mean? see the sunrise in the astral, experience the awakened consciousness. That's what we want to do.
And if you're conscious, you will remember.
Yes. Yes.
Everything.
You'll never forget an astral projection. The hit on the consciousness is immense because you're just like, whoa. I would tell you, it is just like this. There's no difference. I'm here, I'm looking, the light upon the eyes, everything. It's actually more brilliant, more real than the physical world. When you're there, it feels more real because you feel much better. There's a natural state of joy. When you wake up, you're like, oh, it's such a moment because you're like, wow, everything is real. Do you know what I mean? All of the stories, when you mythology, everything, it's all real. There's a whole world in here. That's how I felt the first time I woke in the astral. I was like, oh my God, it's all true. Dragons, everything. Because it's what else is a lie then? Do you know what I mean? How do we know there's not dragons deep beneath the ocean somewhere just waiting to come out? We don't know. Everyone says, oh, we know everything. No, we don't. We got no idea. Go to the astral and experience a bit of the truth and be happy, Yeah, that's enough of a reason to go. Just to feel something different.
Astral Travel.
Yeah, I'm trying to sell it to you. I really like it. The astral's wonderful. Yeah. Go. I will give you another little teaching for the astral. So when you are in the astral, because there's all sorts of things you can do. We can fly. There's sorts of things. I heard someone tell me once. If you want to try and fly in the astral, if you're not just, if jumping isn't working, you can lie on the ground and try and take off like a plane, just focus. Apparently that works. I've never had to do that. I can always fly. But the other one is if you want to get somewhere in the astral, you use the old Aboriginal walkabout technique, which is true. What you do is you concentrate mentally on where you want to go and then just aimlessly kind of walk around and wait, and eventually you'll just end up there. It's true. It works every time. Wait, look for a corner. Corner's always good. So walk along, and then when you find a corner, just turn a corner, and that's it. You're in Paris. It straight up works. I've done it before. It's fantastic. You want to go somewhere? You want to see the Eiffel Tower? Great, no problem. So just walk up the street, kind of walk, concentrate on it, just walk sort of, looking at the ground, and then turn around, and then, you're just going to be there. Because time and distance don't exist. So you just end up there. It's crazy. You just have to experience it. I can't explain it.
But do you wake up that you have a rest?
Yes, of course, because while that's happening, your body's asleep.
Yeah.
Because you're not in the body.
Your mind, because sometimes
You're getting confused with mind and brain. The mind is one of the bodies. The mind's over here.
Okay.
Don't worry about it. This is all being taken care of. You don't need to worry about that at all.
Okay, so
Yeah. So when you're there, your brain is not receiving any signals. The thing that's problematic is when we come back, then when the mind and brain sort of reconnect a little bit, like they sort of communicate again, that's when we often forget things because we don't bring it all back to the physical brain. So when we leave, the physical brain is gone, man. It's not experiencing anything. It's dead. It's on the ground, It doesn't know what's going on. And then when you come back, you're trying to then put that astral experience back into the physical brain. But the problem is we usually forget. I'm talking about like normally, just like a normal dream, like a normal night, where we're not awake, we're unconscious, also in the astral. And then we try to bring back and we sort of can't remember. It's like holding water. It's like it just trickles through your fingers and you're just left with like a feeling. Oh, I feel it was like a good experience. Oh, I forgot. Oh, late class. If you want to try and remember your dreams, there's a mantra you can use, which is Ram. Yeah, as I say, Ram. I always get it mixed up with the tooth mantra for some reason. On no Agnes. Ram. Gaum. And so when you wake up and you want to remember your dreams, concentrate, and then do Raum, Gaum. You're supposed to not move at all. But I'm going to give you a little hint here because we are so degenerated and our body's full of laziness and all this sort of stuff. I will suggest that what you can do is move minimally. So Samael says don't move at all, don't move a muscle. If you got heaps of willpower, good, do that. If you have like very little willpower, like most of us, what you do is you keeping the eyes closed and with extremely slow movement, just twist yourself and sit up. So but like one movement, twist your legs off the bed and sit up, or just sit up, like that. And then do the Ram Gam in a meditative state. Make sure the eyes stay closed, and then try to remember the experience. And sometimes if you do it lying down, you do Ram Gam, you can actually go back into the experience. Like sometimes I'm having an interesting symbolic experience, and I wake up, I'm like, and then while I'm doing the Ram Gam, I actually go back in and it sort of keeps going for a bit. Otherwise, you do Ram Gam like that, sitting up, and then try to remember as much as you can. So Ram Gam, and then focus on the thing and try to remember as much as you can. And what you'll find is you'll sort of start remembering more, and keep going until you have as much as you can, and sort of repeat it a couple of times, and then grab your dream journal and write it down. And once you've written it down, it'll be a lot easier to remember it. But yeah, that's a very good example, key for remembering remembering a dream that you've just had. That's different to like actually projecting. That's different. It's like this. You never forget a projection. No way. It strikes the consciousness so heavily. You're like, whoa, far out. The reason we don't remember them is because we're here. We're just totally dead to the world. We don't remember anything. Sort of something trickles back. Oh, something happened. Whereas here we're more awake than we usually are, like right now. So we always remember that. It impresses the consciousness very strongly. You know what I mean? You've never done it? Go for it. Yeah? Yeah. If you're in the London Correctional Facility and you're doing these mantras, come and visit me here in Byron. I'm very glad you're watching.